Most identity problems are not psychological. They're not about self-esteem or self-concept or knowing who you are. They are about what happens to the body when social pressure shows up. Okay, before we go further, the way that you experience your identity will be shaped by your nervous system and embodiment patterns. We call these patterns the skins. There are 4 primary ways that the nervous system organizes under pressure. Some bodies resist and brace, that's the warrior. Some yield and adapt, that's the shapeshifter. Some narrow and orient, that's the sage. And some widen and sense, that's the asset or the empath. These are not personalities. They are somatic response strategies, and they shape how you handle conflict, leadership, visibility, intimacy, decision-making, creativity, and all the things that really matter. So knowing your skin does not give you another limiting label. It reveals how your nervous system responds to pressure and where your strengths and your blind spots typically live. Pause the video, go down to the description, and take the 2-minute Somatic Skins Quiz. You'll receive your initial description, so bring that in hand and then come back to this video. Everything I'm about to share on identity coherence will make a lot more sense. Identity coherence is the ability to stay congruent when there is something at stake, when approval is uncertain, when disapproval or disappointment is possible, when tension enters the room. It's whether intention survives contact with pressure. And when identity coherence breaks, people don't suddenly become confused about themselves. They become inconsistent. What they feel, what they say, what they do stops lining up. What's tricky is that this behavior, this breakdown, almost never looks like a problem at first. It hides behind socially approved behaviors that are often praised. Be easygoing, be agreeable, be decisive, be good in a crisis. But underneath, the nervous system is solving the same problem in 2 different directions. It either collapses inward or it pushes outward. Those are the 2 identity breakdown loops: compliance and control. Let's talk about compliance first, because it's the one that tends to get moralized the most. Compliance is not kindness, and it isn't empathy. Compliance is what happens when the self can't maintain its shape under relational pressure. The system yields too quickly, not because it wants to, but because it doesn't trust its ability to stay intact if it doesn't. Think of a fawning response in a dog. And you can see this immediately if you know where to look, because the breath will thin or drop out, the chest softens, the gaze will lower slightly, and the spine gives just a little. It's subtle, but it's consistent. Inside, the compliance is justified because it feels like smoothing things over, fixing or making it easier, adapting preemptively so that there's no friction to manage. And people will say things like, oh, it's not a big deal, or I don't want to make this harder, or yeah, I'm fine either way. But that's not the whole truth. Underneath is usually something quieter, a lack of trust that they can stay centered if they don't give way. And this is important because compliance is not just being agreeable or the absence of desire. Many times these people underneath of this pattern, they know exactly what they want. They just can't protect that preference, that desire long enough for it to shape their behavior. The internal frame collapses as soon as external pressure or a stronger presence appears. And over time, this creates resentment, exhaustion, a vague sense of disappearing. From the outside, it often looks like generosity, being the bigger person, emotional intelligence, or being low maintenance. And this is where a lot of heart-centered coaching unintentionally reinforces the problem. We praise empathy. We encourage understanding. We reward accommodation. But without identity coherence, these virtues become strategies for self-erasure. Compliance doesn't resolve by becoming more confident or assertive either in the abstract. It resolves when the body learns how to remain centered, upright, and well in tension. When the truth can be spoken without the breath disappearing. When boundaries or standards can be held without collapse. When the system learns through load-bearing positions and direct practice that it can stay intact and trust itself, even when others are disappointed. Now let's look at the other side of the same breakdown, control. Where compliance collapses inward, control pushes outward. So instead of yielding too fast, the system refuses to yield at all. It pushes, it directs, it manages, it corrects, it overrides. It takes charge of the environment so it doesn't have to reorganize internally. And again, the body tells the truth. Breath will be tight and high. The jaw locks. The spine stiffens. The gaze narrows. Speech speeds up or becomes sharp. There's a sense of holding everything together through effort. From the inside, control feels like steadiness, like competence, like being on top of things. And socially, it often gets rewarded as leadership, decisiveness, or high standards. But it is a brittle steadiness when it is in this breakdown, because it only works as long as nothing pushes back. Underneath of control is systemic fear. Not fear of failure, but fear of losing ground or self. Fear that even a little pressure gets through and then the system will destabilize. So it holds harder, it insists, it tightens. And when we tell a controlling system to soften or relax or let go, this tends to misfire in the opposite direction, because when that person tries, they will either snap back into control or they'll fall straight into collapse, because softness without integrity feels like exposure. Control doesn't resolve through relaxation. It resolves through precision and range, through learning how to hold tension without converting it into domination, through practices that increase structural and energetic capacity so that the system no longer has to clamp down to feel safe. Here's the core insight that I want you to take as a coach. Compliance and control are not personality traits, and they're not moral failures, and they're not insight-driven. They are identity strategies used by a nervous system that can't yet remain congruent under pressure. Both loops are attempts to manage social tension and relational safety with insufficient capacity, one by disappearing, one by overpowering. Identity coherence emerges when structure, breath, attention, and load come together in a way that allows the system to stay honest without collapsing and to stay firm without bracing. That's why this work can't stay at the level of insight or values. You don't decide your way into identity coherence. You train it, you build it, you rehearse it under real conditions. And when identity coherence comes online, something really simple happens. People stop betraying themselves quietly, and they stop needing to dominate or prove loudly. They start acting in ways that actually match what they care about, even when it's uncomfortable or unpopular. Okay, stay tuned, because in the final video of this series, we are going to take this into field coherence, where all of this gets tested in real rooms, real relationships, and real stakes, because presence isn't what you project. It's what remains when the world pushes back. If you, like us, totally love this stuff and you want to go deeper, there are two ways to do so with us. You can check out our core curriculum in our books. I will link them below, or you can train with us directly by applying for a season of the Prestige and experience the power of this work for yourself. Depending on when you're watching this, we are rolling out the new season within weeks, and so now is the time for us to connect. Thank you so much for making it this far in the video. Please do like and subscribe. It helps the channel, and I will see you next for Field Coherence.